here every Wednesday at 7 p.m. because we want to grow you as a defender.
The defender seeks the challenge of standing up for what's morally and ethically right, and is willing to step forward and put themselves in harm's way because they believe that sacrifice and love is the way to do things.
And what we mean by that is that you can grow as a good shooter, but what we're really here for is to help you grow personally as a defender. We know that personal growth and shooting growth go hand in hand, and we want to work to help you become better people in your lives, in your everyday lives, and that's going to translate to your shooting on the range. So that's what we're here for. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show tonight. You're watching Defenders Live with Laura Thorson, and tonight is January 11th, 2023. Thank you for attending tonight. If you're new or you're watching on a replay, welcome. And you guys know the drill. Shout out in the comments where you're watching from. I love to hear from you guys. If you have any questions or comments during the broadcast tonight, please drop those in the comments. We have a very special guest on tonight that I'm excited to introduce you to, and we're going to be doing a live Q&A with him at the end of the show. So you'll be needing to drop those questions in the comments during the show, and we'll be sure to answer those at the end. So a couple of announcements. I have some exciting news. The lineup just keeps expanding, you guys, and I don't know how this is happening, but just like in the last week or two, people have been signing up to come on and fill slots for Defenders Live. So I just want to, and there's going to be many more added to this list, but I just want to shout out some of the people that you can look forward to in the coming months. So we've got Tim Herron from Tim Herron Shooting coming on. Brian Hill from The Complete Combatant is coming back in February. We've got Ed Monk from Last Resort Firearms Training, Jeff Gonzalez from Trident Concepts, Tiffany Johnson, and Akil, and I don't know how to say his last name. I'm sorry about that. I will learn how to say his last name. From Citizens Safety is going to be on. The Range Monkey, Natalie Weidner, is going to be on in March. Chris Bean from Tactical Advantage, Ross Hick from Citizens Defense Research, and Chris Seipert has agreed to come back on as well in April. And then we'll have Robin Sandoval coming back on from A Girl and a Gun in April as well. So we've got quite the lineup coming up in the months to come. So I'm so excited about that. There are just some wonderful people that are coming on the show, and I'm so grateful for that. So thank you all for watching, and for those guests for trusting me to come on the show. That's quite an honor. So I just want to let you know, if you find value in these live streams, please invite others to join the Defenders Live Facebook group. If you guys aren't on the Defenders Live Facebook group, please join. That is where you'll have all the up-to-date information on who's coming on. There will be short little clips from past lives, so you'll be able to stay up to date on everything Defenders Live. Also, please subscribe to the Defenders Live YouTube channel. We're also on Rumble, as well as Defenders USA YouTube channel. So usually my friend Adam Winch, the founder of Defenders USA, is on the show, but tonight he's not. He's actually in the middle of nowhere. I'm not sure exactly where. I think in Arizona, training with Scott Jedlinski right now. So I'm really jealous because I wish I could be there. That would be awesome to train with Scott Jedlinski, but Adam is there training with him right now, and I don't think there's any cell service, or at least that's what I hear. So I will be going at this alone tonight. So if I seem a little distracted from here or there, please give me some grace, as I'll be trying to manage the comments myself. So be nice, right? So since Adam's not here tonight, I am going to quickly run this message from him about our friends and sponsors.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Winch with Defenders USA. I want to tell you about some of our friends and sponsors. I'm a brand ambassador with H&K Firearms. I carry a VP9 from H&K in defensive life. I use it on the range, I use it in training. This is my go-to gun. I highly recommend the VP9 from H&K. Next, Iron American. You can see this bottle here or the one that's hanging off my range bag in front of the camera. That's what I use for liquid chalk on the range. There's also a discount code through Defenders USA that you can get some, and I'd strongly encourage you to order some liquid chalk from Iron America. Next, my gun is carried in a Haven Defense Co. holster. You can find them at havendefenseco.com. Haven Defense Co. You can see their brown leather patch on the front of the bag. And then, of course, there's a Defenders USA patch. You can come to training and try to earn that patch too from Defenders USA.
Well, thank you guys for shouting out in the comments. I see, Ross, you were here early, like he was locked and loaded, ready for the live tonight, which is awesome. And guys, don't be throwing softballs at Neil Weidner tonight. We want some hardball questions to ask him, so don't be afraid. I see that we've got lots of people from Arizona here tonight. Catherine is back. Sarah, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. Haven Defense Company. Brent Hickman is here from Colorado. Chris Brady's back. Thank you for watching. Somebody from New Orleans. Did I say that right? New Orleans is here tonight. Scott from Fort Worth is back. Thank you for watching, Scott. And Kara from Arkansas. I hope I said your name right, Kara. And somebody's here from Oregon. That's great. Heather from Arizona. Wow, I'm glad you made it tonight. Juan is here as well. Oh, and Dave, my friend Dave, my local guy. Thank you for watching tonight. Oh, this is awesome. We've got a great group of people watching tonight, at least the ones that are saying they're watching and shouting out. So hope you guys have some good questions coming up for Neil Weidner. But before I introduce Neil, I do have a tidbit of the week. And some of you guys aren't probably going to want to hear this tidbit of the week because it's got a little bit too much truth to it. But I'm bringing it up for a good reason. I don't really have a title for it, but here's my tidbit. So guys, I had to do something this week that I haven't done in quite a while. In the past, it's been really uncomfortable for me to do this, but I've been having to work to change that. And I know that this is hard for other people as well, so that's why I'm bringing it up. So what I had to do was this week, I had to ask for help. Shout out in the comments if you have a hard time asking for help. From the small stuff to the big stuff, sometimes it's hard to do. It could be as small as asking someone to help you clean the kitchen or take out the trash, or it could be as big as needing an intervention in your life. No matter how big or small, we all need help from time to time in all kinds of ways. Am I right? And here's why we all need help from time to time. We cannot go this alone. Right? We weren't designed that way. We weren't wired to be disconnected. We're wired to be connected with each other. So I just want to encourage you to do some searching within yourself. Are you possibly being too proud, too ashamed, or just too stubborn to ask for help of any kind, on any level? Are you okay asking for help on the range, but when it comes to everyday life stuff, you just don't feel comfortable with it? Maybe you should consider reaching out to a good friend or a mentor that you trust and bounce that idea off of them. Ask them their perspective on something. You might be surprised at how helpful that is. Or maybe like me, you truly do need just to get better at the really small stuff, like assigning someone to stir the gravy while you complete another task at dinner time. You may think that's funny, but it all starts with the small stuff, the really small stuff. And just like in shooting, if you can't master the small stuff, you'll never get better at the bigger stuff. You will stay perpetually stuck. So think about that. What is something small you can work on today to get better in this area? I think many of us are helpers. We're teachers, we're givers. We always work to serve others, but we have to be willing to receive as well. And here's a quotable for today. Tell me in the comments if you know who said this. Until we can receive with an open heart, we're never really giving with an open heart. Now that's something to think about. Until we can receive with an open heart, we're never really giving with an open heart. I've learned that there is always someone in your life willing, maybe even excited to help you if you just have the courage to ask. And for many of us, it does take courage. I believe that life is better lived, better enjoyed, and better shared with those you love helping along the way. And many times their perspective will open your eyes to new possibilities. Maybe you need to get out of your own way in order to realize your full potential. And hey, I'm a work in progress here, so I'm not lecturing. I'm just shedding light on something that I'm working on in my own life that I hope might help you. But I believe that an even greater you can be revealed when you realize and fully accept that you truly can't do it all by yourself, nor should you try. So find your people, find your tribe, and maybe, just maybe, learn to lean on them once in a while. I promise you'll be better for it. So I hope that helps someone out there tonight. Please feel free to reach out to me or comment if you have any thoughts or questions. You know I love hearing from you guys, but let's not delay any longer. Let's get our special guest on here tonight, Neil Weidner. I know that's why you guys are tuned in, and I'm so excited to introduce him. So Neil is the Director of Training and the Chief Marketing Officer at Active Self-Protection. He is a senior active self-protection staff instructor and one of only a handful of people in the world certified to teach ASP branded courses. He's a gifted speaker and instructor, as well as a perpetual student. I would say one of my favorite things about Neil is that he has a great sense of humor, and we all know that's important in life. Neil lives with his family in South Dakota and is a dedicated husband and father, as well as avid hunter. So let's welcome Neil onto the show. Hi, Neil. Thanks for
Hey, how's
coming
it going?
on.
Thank you for
Good.
having me.
You bet. It's a pleasure to have you. So go ahead
Well,
and, yeah, go ahead.
so I already saw one of the comments and from Justin Williams. I need him to know that I am an avid softball fan. So I don't know about like Olympic gold medals, but I know that since the U.S. women's team started playing softball in the Pan Am Games, I think they've won every gold medal. Like they're 105 is their record or something like that. And I did not Google that before they started. I just saw his comment, so I wanted to make sure he knows that I know my softball. So
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'm
I
glad you
may
saw that comment. I haven't seen that yet. I'm
I,
gonna have to go
I
back
might
through
have
there and look.
I might have gone onto my dry fire group and asked people to come give me easy questions so that I could look good here. So, I'm not above that. Not above that at all.
Oh, Neil, you are quite the guy. Okay, let's
I try.
get to business here, Mr. Neil.
You bet.
Well, how about you? Because I maybe everybody watching knows you, but there might be some that don't. So for those that don't know you, we have to know your background. How did you get involved with active self-protection? How did this all come to be? Take it
Oh
away.
man. Sometimes I think it was kind of by accident, or by a much better design than I would have had. My background is in sales and call centers and that kind of thing. I ran call centers for different Fortune 100 companies over the years and over my career. And at one point, I think we kind of got tired of moving around. One of the blessings and curses of being kind of good at something is that you get asked to do some of the hard jobs sometimes. I kind of got tired of being the guy that they're like, hey, Neil, would you move to this town for 6 months and see if you can help this call center get better or whatever. And I think after we moved about 6 times in 7 years with a bunch of little kids, I kind of got fed up with that and tired of it, and decided to move back home. I'm a South Dakota born and raised kid. I grew up in the big city of Cologne, South Dakota. Actually, I grew up on a farm outside the big city of Cologne, South Dakota. So our 300 and some population town is not
300?
much for. Yeah, my graduating class was 15 kids.
Whoa.
I sometimes brag that I took every girl in my class to prom at one point or another, because there were 4 girls and I went to 4 proms. So that's kind of a lie, but still almost true.
Wow.
But yeah, so I'm a small town kid, a redneck kid that just likes to, like I said, like you said, I like to hunt. I like to get outdoors. I think my family is the most important thing that I have, and want to make sure that I'm around for them and that's kind of what I do. So I got back to South Dakota. Those that know me know Steph pretty well as well. They know that we have a special needs son that came to us through the foster care system, and that was a little bit rocky when he first came to the family, in that it was kind of a high-profile case. If you watched any Fox News or CNN, you may have heard Cody's name once upon a time, about 17 some odd years ago, as he was removed from his family. I mean, it made national news when he was removed from his family, and we were brand new to the foster care system, and so they decided, well, nobody knows Neil and Steph's address, let's put him there. And of course, we fell in love with him on day one, and have never really looked back. There's been tons of challenges, but one of the big challenges that really kicked us down this path towards self-defense was a run-in with the birth family, and my young bride at home with my 5 kids as strangers are coming to take children away is kind of a kick in the pants to get you to start thinking about these kind of things. And a redneck with a whole bunch of hunting guns does nothing for your family when you're at work and you're far away. And so we kind of worked through that and learned a whole lot. And that's about the time Steph started getting involved with ASP at the Facebook level. Greg Ellifritz really was probably before ASP. She was reading everything she could from there, and I think when John started, kind of growing ASP on the Facebook page, he asked for volunteers, and Steph was like, I don't know a ton about self-defense, but I can delete an F-bomb if somebody types one out on the the comments. And so, so she got involved and started doing that. And, and at one point, we moved back, and I was selling soap, driving this ginormous, huge route all over the state of South Dakota.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was spending 6,000 or 7,000 miles on the road, which to the truck drivers out there, that's nothing, right? But to plan on spending the night in your own bed every night of the month and drive that many miles, that's a lot. Wow. And at one point, one of the cool things about working for that company was I could use my work car for personal things. And John got invited to speak at an event in Milwaukee. I think it was a USCCA or NRA, maybe that might have been their concealed carry expo thing or something. But they told him that they would pay for him to bring his staff, which he didn't have any staff at the time. Steph was helping. There were some volunteers. I'm not trying to make light of that, but he's like, hey, if you guys want to come to Milwaukee, they'll pay for your flight or your gas or whatever. So Steph and I jumped in my little work car and drove, 13, 14 hours, which was nothing at the time because I basically lived in that car anyway. And at this event, we were having lunch, and it was, John and I knew each other. We were friendly, but I wouldn't call us much more than acquaintances at that point. And so we're sitting at dinner, and I'm like, all right, dude, what do you want to do with this thing? This is kind of cool what you've done. YouTube, he was just kind of getting into YouTube at the time, and he was still pastoring the church, and he said something there at dinner to me. He's like, I'd really like to be able to pastor the church for free. I would rather, I'd like to not have to take a paycheck from the church. And I was like, okay, cool. That's admirable. And I love that idea. What has to happen for that to become a reality? And he's like, I got to get some sponsors. I've got to get some other way to pay the bills. YouTube is starting to pay us a little bit, but I've got to do something. And I was like, wow, I've been in sales for pretty much my adult life. Again, I'm not any kind of expert in self-defense stuff or gear, but what kind of sponsors are you looking at? Let's go walk the floor in the morning and find one. And the floor opened that next morning, I think at about 9, and about 9:10, we walked up to the Mantis booth, and started playing with the Mantis units. I mean, have you ever seen them at a show? They set up a big curtain and a bunch of the airsoft guns, and you do that. And while we're playing with this thing, I'm like, I can see where that would make me a better shooter. And hi, Goose, that's my daughter. Awesome. And so while John and Steph are sitting there playing the game, shooting the guns and all of that kind of stuff, I looked around and I ran, and I came across Austin, one of the owners, struck up a conversation, and 2 weeks later we had our first sponsor, and they've been with us ever since. And I hope they are with us for the duration. We're with them. I'm hoping they're with us. I can't wait. Next week is SHOT Show, so I'm really excited to see those guys and continue that relationship. And then it just grew from there. I came on kind of part time. And at the very beginning of the pandemic, I turned in my resignation at the soap company and kicked myself for, because lockdown started not too long after that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done?
Wow.
If there was a silver lining to any of that, it was that everybody stayed home and watched YouTube, and all the YouTube channels exploded, and we were one of them, and things just went through the roof, and so we've been able to make replace the living that I gave up there, and move forward and grow this thing, and going off and doing training classes and running the ASP. The instructor certification program and all of that kind of stuff it just seems like the wheel just keeps turning, and this thing is growing, and I'm doing my best to be part of the team that steers it in the right direction. if that makes sense.
What a wild ride. That's a wild ride. That's so cool.
Yeah, I've had this rule that I've kind of lived by a lot, and it really came into play when I first started. The very first time I went to SHOT Show, with John brought Steph and I out to SHOT Show, her to help him, and me he would give me a ticket to get in, and I could just walk around and look at stuff. And so of course I get there, you walk around, you see all the cool stuff, and the redneck in me walks right down to all the hunting stuff, and I saw all of the beard guys and all of that down there. And then I started hanging out with John, and I was watching, people, they kind of knew who he was. But I overheard a conversation between two unrelated parties where somebody asked a different influencer, which is kind of an ugly word. I don't really care for that word, but what it would take to become a sponsor on their channel. And the guy just flat said, no, I've got something else, and walked off. And that guy is not an influencer anymore, and he's not part of, as far as I know, I've completely lost track of him, and every now and again I look, and so my hard and fast rule that I've always played with or worked on is I never say a hard fast no right off the bat. Always listen to people, always get an idea, see if there's benefit for everybody, and that's what I really brought into the Ask marketing side of it. Is I just don't say no right off the bat. I try to keep an open mind. Ultimately, I say no a lot because you have to, because if the benefit isn't there for everybody, but it does make for a wild ride when you don't say no very often. It does.
Yeah, I imagine it does. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I was telling you earlier, and guys, the mission, I guess, that I've noticed about active self-protection, and I want you to talk to Neil more about, what active self-protection is, et cetera, et cetera. We'll get into that. But one of the things I've noticed about, and it was just stuck in my head, and part of the reason I titled this the way that I did was I saw this quote that says, the rising tide lifts all boats. And that resonated with me because when I think of active self-protection and the instructor certification program, the national conference, and all of the things you guys are involved in, I think of a rising tide. I think of you guys as trying to partner up and network with other people in order to make this entire industry better. And so that's why I titled it the way that I did. So could we get into your mission behind active self-protection? Like literally you have the YouTube channel, you have the active self-protection extra channel, and then a little bit later we'll get into the instructor certification program and the national conference, because there's a lot.
There is. Our bread and butter is YouTube for sure. The two channels on YouTube, the big channel we call the big channel, or we call it main, because that's the one that it's got 2.8 some odd million fans. Or somebody explained to me those are subs; those are not fans. So you get to have some great conversations.
Some of them aren't fans at all, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I had one guy remind me that while I was sitting at the NRA National Convention just last summer, and I was talking to a guy about, listen, I want to test, it was the grizzly ears guy. Everybody has probably seen, or some people have seen, I've got some different ear stuff, and I can never find an in-ear that will stay in my weirdly shaped ears. I have giant Spock ears and tiny little tiny little earlobes or something. I don't know what it is, but so I'm talking to this guy and I'm telling him who I am, and I'm not there trying to fish for free stuff or anything. That's the whole influencer thing that I alluded to a little bit ago. But I was telling him, I'm like, his stuff was all about hunting and everything, and he hunts here in my town in Mitchell, South Dakota. So we were talking about that, and I'm like, yeah, I help out with this YouTube channel. We've got about at the time I think it was like 2.6 million fans, and some dude standing right there corrected me that those aren't all fans. Some of those are just subs because they're there to unfornicate our thinking. And he said it in a little bit more
different way,
colorful way, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I was like, oh, I feel like I've seen you in the comments, or many people like you in the comments. But that's really our bread and butter is an educational thing, is to educate people on how things really happen. I feel like I'm in a fortunate place that I get to meet these people all of the time that have had a near life and death kind of thing, or have been in I've been in a shootout or had to shoot somebody or had to defend their own life or their family with a pepper spray or open-handed skills or with a firearm and that kind of thing, and never once does one of them say, well, it went exactly the way I thought it would go. They just don't. But we talk all the time, and you see it in the comments all the time, to people that don't have this experience, that are like, well, I do this because when my day comes, here's how it's going to go, and they have this process in their mind of how it's going to go. And so that's the educational side of it, is it's not going to go the way that you think it's going to go. Yeah. And it's going to happen the time that, that there's been times where things have happened in my life and I'm like, man, that did not go the way I wanted to go. And I wish I would have reacted better, or I wish I would have done this differently. And, I think those mental reps that we get to give people, give them an opportunity to do their thing. Yeah.
Yep. Definitely.
And so, you get 50, 60 million views a month. There is some value there. So sponsors will come on and help with that. And that helps us make a living and helps us kind of keep the ball rolling, down the road in the direction that we want it to. And so that's really what's all behind it. Is it's an educational thing, and again, everything is a little bit of a blessing and a curse, because you do get to hear how stupid you are on a daily basis, and anytime you put a video up, you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't in some cases.
Right, but, and that's where the sense of humor comes in, right?
Exactly. And so if you can't laugh at yourself a little bit, but sometimes you also have to, you do have to step back and really analyze yourself. And that's a thing that I've always felt like has been important to me, is that self-analyzation, can I do this better? Is there something I can do different? Am I stuck in my way here, or is there a better way? And so,
that's a perfect segue into my next question, Neil.
Yeah, shoot.
So I didn't have this originally in the lineup of questions, but I was thinking about it today. I think I saw an ad on Facebook or something, and I'm always looking at things like you just said, and how could that be better, or was that not done well enough, or whatever, in regards to marketing. And so my question to you is, because you are in the marketing of active self-protection, you're involved in that, is the overlying question is, are we missing the mark? And so hear me out on this. I've heard a lot of instructors talking about how we need to get more people into training. We need to somehow resonate with them in a different way. How can we get more people involved? Or what about these people that sign up, but then they don't show up for class? They just aren't committed to it. And my question is, instead of like blaming these people, maybe, which is easy to do, these flaky people, maybe we should look at ourselves from maybe a marketing standpoint, or maybe some other way, and ask ourselves, are we not reaching these people in a meaningful way? Are we not getting the message across correctly? Or and do we need to rethink about how we reach out to these people, what our messaging should be, our strategies, etc.? And are we leaving some people out, maybe knowingly or unknowingly, in the gun community? It's just something that kind of was on my mind, and you seem like a good person to ask that question to.
Well, I can give you an answer. I don't know how accurate it'll be,
Well,
but
it's just your
I
opinion.
do. I do, yeah. So this is my opinion. This is not the opinion of Active Self-Protection or any of its entities. But as I look at that, I think Carl Wren did some research on this along with some others that only about 1% of people ever go take a training class beyond their CCW, and so as instructors, at a national level or even a local level, I think we're kind of fighting for those dollars. If that makes kind of sense what I'm saying. And
Small market share there. Is that what you're saying?
Well, but I mean,
how
when
many
there's
people is
300,
that?
yeah,
quite
that's a
few
lot of people,
still.
right?
Yeah.
But I do think that if you're struggling to get people to show up for classes, or you have no shows and those kind of things, I would recommend to look inward first. It very well may be nothing that you're doing, but one of the biggest lessons that I learned in business years and years ago was, if I don't look inward, people aren't going to follow me if I'm not open to hearing what they have to say. I credit a couple of ladies from a call center one time basically sitting down and grabbing me by the ears and shaking my head saying, Neil, you got to pay better attention to your people and think about this. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the boss. You got to listen to me. And I know I'm the expert here, and I can outwork you all and all of that. But when it really came down to it, when I sat down and started listening, I'm like, oh, okay, I can see your challenge there. And I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can help you come up with a plan to figure that out. And that really started me looking inwardly first when there's a challenge. And so, and I think there are different personalities, and some people will blame themselves first, and some people will blame everybody else first. And I don't know that it has to be a blame game. I think it can be can I analyze myself first? Did I do everything that I could do? And was there something that I may have done that made these 2 or 3 people no show, or made it so nobody wants to show up for a class or whatever? Is there value in what I'm doing? Are we teaching the right things? Is my brand built in such a way that people trust to come to me? And I think there's some, I can think of 2 or 3 instructors, and I'm not going to name names and run things down, but I can think of 2 or 3 instructors that have been around in the few years that I've been doing this that aren't here anymore, simply because it was kind of a my way or the highway kind of thing. And a cult following will take you a little ways, but it won't take you all the way. You have to be open to continue to bring people in. And then there is that other 99%. If we can figure out a way to cross that gap just a little bit and and welcome them in, it's not unlike any other outreach kind of thing that we're really trying to bring people to us to teach them what it is that we love about this and why we value this so much. But I think our message gets lost in things like politics and when the first thing we do is throw the other side of the aisle under the bus, that it has to be either the donkeys or the elephants, depending on which side you're on. You're literally cutting your potential customers in half by lining up one side or the other. And self-defense isn't a Republican or a Democratic thing. That's a right for all of us, and it's not an American thing, it's not a Christian thing. It's a God-given right to all of us. And even if I may not agree with you worshiping a different God, but at the end of the day, you still have the right to self-defense. And I was commanded to love everybody, and I'm not the judge of these people or of anybody, depending on what their rights are. And yes, I have political views, and yes, I have religious views, and yes, I have my personal stuff. But when it comes to the business, I want to be open to everybody so that I can bring them in, because I can't change people's mind if I don't get to speak to them.
Right.
And jumping up on a soapbox on Facebook or in YouTube comments and beating people to death with all caps doesn't change anybody's mind. It just doesn't.
Quote of the day: beating people up with all caps. I've never heard that before.
Oh man, we see it a lot, and so
I bet you do.
It's one of those things that you can only spend so much time in the comments sometimes, and I know there's a lot of people that are like, well, you just don't read the comments. Well, if you don't engage in the comments, it turns turns into a cesspool. So you do have to engage in the comments, is at least my opinion. And, and if you engage in the comments and you talk to people, sometimes you have a chance. And there's been a few times where people are, where we actually get to have a good conversation with people. And I've had people show up to classes because of what they saw on, on a video that we did on the Extra channel where we shot this, that, or the other thing. And we put up our misses because we're a one-take wonder on Extra. So if we miss, those videos go up, and it's when your teenage daughter beats you at something and that has to go up.
Didn't she
it's
do
very
that
good.
Recently? I'm pretty sure she did.
Multiple times. Yes,
Yeah.
multiple times. And she's a great shooter, and she's got 3 sisters that are also great shooters. So we have always laughingly joked about our zombie apocalypse team has plenty of shooters. we need cooks and ditch diggers for the Weidner Zopac. But it's something that we've always done some shooting at our house, and it's always something that we've had fun with. And I've got a whole family full of fun shooters and fun people that are good people to hang out with.
I think your daughters are virtually fighting over the comments or something. I don't know what's going on for sure, but they're
see there. I've seen a couple of them pop by here, but
yeah.
So Natalie is the range monkey, and Rebecca is our second oldest daughter, and I don't know and I know Bailey's in there too, and I think Madison might be on here. So I don't know. I'm probably just filling up the people with family.
Members.
It's my 4 daughters, my wife, and my mom watching tonight. That's awesome.
Oh no, there's more people than that watching. I can tell you right now, way more people than that.
Cool.
Well, let's move on here to, I told you we were going to talk about the instructor certification program in the national conference. So I was talking earlier about ways that I feel like ASP tries to lift all boats with the rising tide. And those are 2 ways that I think you guys do that. Could you speak to those 2 things a little bit more for those that don't know what
absolutely.
that is?
I really like your, the tide that rises, because in the early years, it wasn't like that. It was tough. When ASP was nobody and when John was nobody, it was interesting when we would go to shows how John was treated. And nobody knew who I was, so I could just kind of follow along. And I heard the after comments after he walked by and all that kind of stuff of who does this guy think he is? What's he, is he qualified? All of that kind of stuff. But, it's interesting to now see how some of those people interact with us when we've got something that it would be of benefit. So, I think how you treat people when they're nobody means more than how you treat people when they're somebody. And we see it over and over and over again. And so, and one of our things here is that, listen, if somebody's a good person, we should be treating them the right way. And if they're not necessarily a good person, then maybe we keep our distance, or maybe we just, and sometimes in love, you have to say something. But there's so many good people out there. And one of the things that's really cool about our conference is that, we were teaching a class down in Kansas. They invited us in to teach our 2-day evidence-based pistol skills and our church safety class. And the class gets over and we're sitting there with Mike and Lisa at their house having a beverage, wrapping everything up. And we had been talking about a national conference and talking about the Bullets and Bible stuff and doing all of that kind of stuff. And pretty much at the same time, John and I looked at each other and were like, this is where we should do that. This is the right place. And we're learning about the foster system and the foster care that these guys help with. And Cody came to us through foster care. So there's a connection there. And what we talked about was, if we do this conference style and we do this as a fundraiser to help, lift the camp up and help these kids that really, really need it, I think the good people that we know in the industry would probably get behind that. And next year will be our 5th year or 5-year anniversary of doing this. And it's a challenge to make space for all the people that want to come help. And so people like high-end instructors, like Riley Bowman shows up, the weekend after his own conference, completely exhausted, to come do this because he believes in the mission, and he believes in what he's doing, and of course he gets a little something out of it because he gets his name on the on there, maybe his picture on the poster or something like that. But that's not what he's doing it for. And if somebody's coming to get their name out there, then that's not they're probably not going to get invited. You know what I mean? Adam Winch doesn't get invited to this thing because for any other reason than because he's Adam Winch. And the first time I met him, that guy struck me as somebody that's a man of his word, that loves people and wants to help them get better, and has never done anything that makes me think anything different than that. I've spent not a ton of time with him, but I've spent some significant time with Adam, and I just love that guy. He's so fun. And the best part is I can outshoot him. Right, because I outshot him that one time.
Oh yeah, we got to bring that up, Neil. What is that? What happened now? Tell us the whole story.
So, I mean, I don't, Adam took Brian Hill's, coaching class, and Brian has his trifecta drill that if you can do the three things in under 3 seconds, you become one of the cool kids, right?
Yeah.
And Adam took that class like 2 weeks before I did, and he did not do it in under 3 seconds. And then I took it and I did it in under 3 seconds. So technically I'm a better shooter than he is. At that. And so we will never have a shoot off in public, because for right now I'm on the pedestal and he can't. Yeah. So I'm undefeated against Adam Winch. So there's no reason to even try harder. And I love rubbing in his face. And the cool thing is that it doesn't appear to bug him at all. He laughs just with it, and because I think he knows he's way better shooter than I am. But that's the kind of people that we want to come to this thing, is the people that are there for the right reasons, or having fun, or pushing themselves, or always trying to get better. And love people. And so, that's, we want to lift those. I think that, Brian Hill was going to be a national level instructor no matter what we ever did. Right. But when the very first time we took a class from him, I'm like, this guy has got something special. We need to show people who this is, and we need to give him a stage. And it helps us too. There's benefit on both sides to this thing. But I think, I'm not taking any credit for Brian Hill's success. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm saying, my goodness, when you find good people and you put them together, good things happen for everybody. And that's what that's kind of what the conference is about, is showcasing the good instructors out there. And what's really kind of fun and interesting about it is when these instructors show up. I mean, like Chuck Haggard and Brian and Adam and all of these people that have so much experience. They've been to Rangemaster, TACCon, those kind of things, and they show up at our conference and they're like, this is not the TACCon crowd. They're looking around and they're like, okay, so everybody has a palm pepper spray. Everybody has a VP9. This is the active self-protection tribe. There's not, you know what I mean? And so some of these people, it's their very first class, and so it's very unique in that way. And so what I love about the conference, and why it's probably my favorite weekend of the year, is I get to handpick, or I get a part in handpicking who gets to teach these people. And I get to introduce these people to the people that I look up to and admire. And, Chris Seipert, the first time, I'm like, I can't believe Chris Seipert is coming to our conference. And in the group, the private group, I'm like, hey, I'm teaching my church safety live fire portion. I need a couple of AIs to come help out. And Chris Seipert's like, I'll AI for you, Neil. And I'm like, what am I going to teach these people? And so to have, people that are legit, people that I look up to and admire, come and help out, and then just sit there and do their thing. And he didn't take over the class. What he did input was so great. I'm like, I'm like, Chris, what would, you've kind of done some of this stuff. Talk to us a little bit. And it's so fun to be able to introduce those people to the fans and to the attendees at this thing. And I think it just makes it very special.
That's exactly how I feel about Defenders Live. Like, I feel like I get to show up every week and I get to talk to somebody that is like an expert in their field. I mean, I hate to say this, but honestly, I'm just like, why do they even want to be on the show? Like, what do I have to offer? I don't know, but I'm so excited and so grateful. And it's really exciting when you get people together to have conversations and share ideas, and it just brings the energy level up and it makes everybody better. So
Well, not to kiss up to you, but it's I think part of it is a big part of it is you have a great personality and you're good
I
at
have a sparkling
asking those
personality.
questions. Yeah, yeah. But no, you ask good questions and it's more of a long format, so people
Yeah.
actually get to kind of tell their story, and people like me are interested in that, and so I want to tune in and I want to hear what Tim Grover is a really good friend of mine. He's been on your show, and I
Yeah.
want to tune in and hear what Tim has to say, and I want to be able to, and I like the format where I can type a comment to him and I can give him a hard time while we're doing it,
Yeah.
and that doesn't offend him and it doesn't offend you, and and then when you have other folks on here that I look up to, you bring on good guests and you do a good job with it, so that's why they come.
Well, thank you. I
For
appreciate you
sure.
saying that. I am doing my best and working really hard to improve all the time. But many times I feel as though I'm failing, but I just keep showing up. So
Yeah, that I always told people in my call center days, which was a lifetime or two ago, attendance is 9/10 of the battle. Show up and you're gonna win. If
show
you
up.
just show up and keep fighting,
Doesn't
just
John say
being
keep
here is.
making the donuts? Isn't that what John says?
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yep. Make the donuts
Keep
is
making
how
the
he puts it.
donuts.
Yep.
That's awesome. So I have one last question for you. Well, I want you to talk about the instructor certification, but before you do, I'll have one question after that. But I want to remind you guys, I'm going to get my mug up here on the screen so you can see me. I want to remind you guys to start putting your questions in the comment box if you have questions for Neil, because this hour's flying by and I haven't even got to the good stuff yet. So please put your questions in the comments so that we can answer those towards the end of the live. So yeah, Neil, please go into the instructor certification. I just got an email about it just here tonight. So that's going to be the cohort 6 is
It's
starting up right
cohort 6
away.
is start. Yep, is I think so. So the instructor certification program is something that after a few hundred hours of gun school, John and I and Steph were talking about that, and there's so much gun school, and there's a ton of great gun school out there. So this isn't that we want to improve all of everything out there. I think there's a lot of great gun school out there. There's some pretty average, and there is some bad stuff out there, but there's a lot of people that don't understand the adult learning model and don't understand how to transfer knowledge from one adult to another, and that's a struggle, and so just because you were I'm not thinking of anybody specifically here, but if you were a drill instructor in the military, that doesn't necessarily make you a great handgun instructor for the civilian population. The civilians, we don't care for the knife hand, that you will do it this way. We don't care for that, especially when we're paying money to be there. We're there to learn. And just the way that we transfer knowledge and the way that as adults we bring knowledge in and maintain that, I saw that as a real opportunity, and we all did, and I kind of turned that into my baby a little bit, and then John and Steph John got really involved, and Steph kind of gave us the stamp of approval, and she's pretty involved, and so we made up this. It's like an online college course, so it's a 6-month long program. There's a few books that you have to read. There's some papers that you have to write. There's some time that you have to spend online weekly. We do our weekly cohort meetings via WebEx or Zoom calls or whatever once a week for an hour or two. Look, there's people that have been on here,
past cohorts,
and we call them cohorts as we go along. Yeah, so. And you really there's a bond that gets created when you meet with the same group of people every week for 6 months. That's pretty cool. But also what we do is at the pretty early on in this, we have a 3-day in-person, and it's really not as much about it's more about adult learning than shooting. So you have to shoot a qualifier to get in. You have to qualify to get in. So you've got to shoot the FBI qual at 90% or better, which isn't impossible, and a lot of people can do that. You got to do it on video without breaks, which is interesting, right? Or you have to do it in front of me.
That's not the shortest drill ever.
It's not, right?
No.
But then you've also got to shoot dot torture at 45 or better at 3 yards, which people that think dot torture a 45 at 3 yards is easy, have never shot it. So that tells us something. But once you shoot to get in and you qualify, and you get some references and that kind of stuff, we get you in. And early on, we come to South Dakota and spend 3 days in person doing some teach backs. We do a little bit of shooting there, just because we're all gun people, right? So let's shoot some and have fun. But I think we are, I think we're doing good things for the community. I'm not saying that we're not really out to change everything or reset anything or along those lines, but I think we're wanting to put good people out there. And we're saying at the end of 6 months, and not everybody passes, by the way, which is never a fun conversation. But it's one of those things where we build community and we build a network for folks build their own network, and to this day those different cohorts continually do meeting. They don't meet. Hi, Madison. They don't meet weekly like they used to, but monthly. So it seems like they still want to continue that. I know several of them teach together. Last year at the national conference, we had a couple of things come up, last minute stuff where people couldn't make it. So I tapped on, asked certified instructors. I'm like, hey, can you come help? And they're like, oh, I'm coming anyway. I'll be happy to teach a class. That kind of stuff. And so it gives us that insight to more people and bringing people in and getting to introduce, that 1% at the very least, if not the 99% of people that don't take classes, to additional great instructors and people that we know and trust. And so, that's what the instructor certification is all about.
Well, and that is quite a bit. I can't imagine the organization that goes on behind the scenes to pull that off. Even I can't imagine. I'm honestly a tiny bit nervous about it. I don't know exactly. I kind of know what it entails. I know enough to be dangerous. That's about it. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's good that I don't know exactly what I'm getting into.
Show up and do the work. I always tell people in classes, one of the things I tell people all the time is, especially when we're doing shooting classes, and just this last Sunday, John and I were teaching a class. And I'm like, if I tell you to do something or try something and it feels weird, just embrace that and give it a try. And if you embrace the weirdness, and you get better performance out of it, maybe it's just weird because it feels a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe you embrace that weirdness and at the end of the day, it's all garbage and you toss that out. I'm not going to be offended. I'm not going to be at your gunfight. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really, but if you're going to spend the money, embrace the weirdness. If it feels weird, give it a try and trust us a little bit. You trusted us with your money. You're trusting us with your time. Just embrace the weirdness and read the books, get involved in this stuff. And nobody that has actually got involved has ever had, has ever felt bad. There's a couple, there's a few, like I said, not everybody passes because, it is a workload and it is a process and not everybody will go do the work. It's just like anything else. Not everybody's going to participate. And if you don't embrace the weirdness, you won't get the payoff.
So you get out of it what you put into it, just like anything else. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's go into a little bit different of a subject, maybe a little bit more personal. So we talked about serving others, throughout the Active Self-Protection organization, but you have a heart of service to others within your family. That is what your family is about. And so I wanted you, if you could, if it's not too personal, I think you're pretty open about this and we've talked about it before. Could you talk about the commitments in your personal life, specifically as it relates to raising a child with special needs? Because I know a lot of people, me included, don't understand that kind of commitment, the kind of sacrifice and the hardships that go along with that. And I think there's lessons to be learned there. So would you mind speaking to that? Lots of lessons, I'm sure.
How much time do we have left?
Well, not a ton, but yeah.
Yeah. That I'm glad that my daughters are all watching and I hope they're paying attention. We could not do this without them. And the sacrifices that they've made to allow us to get to this point are valued and very important to me as a dad and as a human being. But so many people will, I see it all the time when there's a conversation about um, adoption or special needs this or whatever. You always see these people, well, you put your money where your mouth is, and the people that are saying that haven't, and I feel like we have. When we brought Cody into our house at 2 weeks old, um, this was 17 years ago, so I wouldn't call myself a young man at the time, but I was kind of naive to how that all went. I didn't necessarily recognize the burden that I was saddling my family with, but you could pull any one of them here, and maybe I should, but there isn't one of them that would say we should have done it differently. And while some days we all want to pull our hair out, and some days we can't, we can't even function to some degree because we've got a very close, tight-knit family. We're able to back each other up. And service Cody, we get it all the time. Cody is so lucky to be with you guys, and anybody that has a special needs kid will always, we always say thank you and we appreciate that. But when we're talking amongst ourselves, and I've got a lot of friends and a lot of people have come out of the closet, for lack of a better term, but a lot of people hide their Cody. A lot of people don't talk about their Cody, and there's more Codys in the world than some people will say, and we hear it a lot, that they're like, your openness about this is allowing me to be open about this, and I got to meet a young gal this last weekend that is a friend of ours, that was not necessarily like they hid her or anything along those lines, but it just wasn't something that they talked about a ton. But I got to go hang out with this little girl for a little while, and I'm like, man, it's so awesome to get to meet you. And I think sometimes as parents of kids with special needs, or especially if there's behavioral issues or verbal issues or communication issues, it's hard because we don't get to focus. And anybody that's been at the conference, and I've seen several people that comment about how great Cody is, knows that if you're on Cody duty at the conference, you don't get to hang out with everybody. You get to hang out with everybody for about 30 seconds, and then he's moving on, and you're just kind of hanging out, you're following along. And that can be very, very taxing. And so, our family unit has been very, very tight over the years. And it isn't that we don't all once in a while break down and sob in tears with, when this thing got broke or that happened, or we just can't take any more. We lean on each other a lot. But when it all comes down to it, he needs us and we need him. I admire my entire family, and I'm probably the worst at it. I'm the one that probably has the shortest fuse, and I'm the one that deals with most of the stuff and the broken things and all of that kind of stuff. But what's been amazing to me as a dad is to see the young men that have come into, when you have 4 daughters, there's especially when they're all pretty young girls, the guys come around, and you can only threaten to kill so many of them before somebody calls the law enforcement. But what has been really, really cool is the young men that they've brought into the family have usually been very, very good with Cody. And if they're not, the girls have recognized that, and they're like, you know what, I don't think this is a good fit. This is my family. And so if this isn't a good fit, and if you can't handle Cody, then you probably don't deserve to be with us, be around here. And so it makes my heart swell every time that one of these guys come into our family, and just to see them deal with Cody. And one of our son-in-laws is the hardest working man I know, and is just a saint, and somehow is probably he handles Cody so well, and Cody calls him his brother, and he calls all of the guys his brother, but Cody and Levi are tight, and that kid trusts him, and that's a big thing when you deal with anxiety the way Cody does. Trust is hard to come by, and these guys have built it. And so I'm very proud of my family. Very, very proud of my family.
And how do you think that you personally have changed from the time that he came into your life until now? Have you grown as a person as well? And how is that? How does that does that influence the way that you treat others now versus before, or the way you look at things differently?
I think you got to take everything on a day by day basis for sure. But it has changed me a lot in that, I thought I had everything all figured out. I mean, I was thinking Steph and I should probably write some books on parenting because we got it all, we had these four amazing daughters. Everything was great. We did good with the, I don't know if they'd agree with this, but I think we did good with the discipline. We did good with the raising them. We did the good stuff with the schooling and all of that kind of stuff. But then we found out what we don't know when Cody came along, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know how to deal with this, and so I've really had to lean on education. I'm a gun school junkie, but fairly regularly, Steph and I over the years have taken classes on behavioral stuff, dealing with people with special needs, or that was one of the late William April. Everybody holds him in very high esteem, as I do as well. But the thing, I got more stuff out of his class in dealing with Cody than I did in self-defense. I think, those are huge shoes to fill, but there's this dude named Ross Hicks who is in the comments here tonight that I think is the next one of those. And Ross has been a fantastic resource for us in dealing with some of that kind of stuff. And then just some of the classes that we've taken. And I think that, we all get worn very thin, and we all get pretty rough around the edges from time to time. But I do think I'm a better communicator because of Cody and because of spending that time with him. And I feel like a complete and utter failure most days in dealing with Cody, because it is difficult. But I wouldn't trade any of it for the world. But for sure, sometimes we need breaks. Sometimes we need to take a breather. But I think I talk to people differently. I view things differently. I don't take myself as seriously as maybe I did once upon a time, and a lot of that has to do with him.
Wow, that is so amazing to hear you say, and that you give so many others credit. I was talking about earlier that sometimes we need to ask for help, right? I mean. I'm sure that there are many times you were needed to ask for help in different areas, and you've learned so many things from that others can take away as well. So that's really good stuff. Neil, we've gone over the hour mark.
Oh man!
I don't want to cut you off.
Fast.
Oh, I know it did go fast. We don't have a ton of questions, but if you could I think there might be one or two here I might throw at you if you have the time. Do you have the time?
I have the time. Absolutely.
Okay.
As long as they're good questions.
Well, I'll just delete. No, they're good questions. So this person wants to know, they say, I have heeded the advice of those who have said that because of the dynamic, spouses should not train each other. Neil, how does the dynamic between father and daughter work? Why do you think it works so well for you and Natalie?
Oh, that is a great question. I think that's a personality thing. And there's that a power dynamic between a husband and wife, a father-daughter, father-son. And I think that sometimes it really comes down to the relationship. Natalie and I get along very well. I get along great with all of my daughters. I love going and shooting with all of my daughters. We're a very competitive family. For years and years and years, well, I don't know, years and years and years, but we've been into archery over the years, and for a long time, when we would go shoot archery, whoever did the best had to buy the ice cream on the way home. And the first time Dad had to buy, and Dad always had to buy the ice cream anyway, but the first time that Madison knocked me out and beat me, she has literally never let me forget it. And so, but I think they've always seen that I love them no matter how it works out. So when they were, just tiny little girls, I coached them in their basketball leagues. And it didn't matter if they scored all the points or didn't score any points. I still loved them. There's a basketball organization called Upward Basketball, and it's a church league kind of thing. And man, at the peak of our coaching this, I think Steph and I and a friend of mine, Doug, were teaching or coaching like 5 teams just so we could have all our daughters on our own teams. And so Saturdays were a nightmare. I'm sure it was a nightmare for the league, but we went there and we had a high standard. We're like, okay, we're going to teach you how to play this game, but at the end of the day, we don't care, win, lose, or draw, as long as you try hard, as long as you have fun and try hard. And I'm going to show you how you can win and try hard and do it the right way. And some parents, there were a fair amount of parents that didn't care for it when they played our teams, because we taught aggressive screens and playing good defense and all of that kind of stuff, rather than just running around and trying to throw. So we put something to it, and we had fun with it, and we celebrated the wins, and we learned from the losses, and we're like, you know what? At the end of the day, you can't get that shot back. You can't get that pass back. So let's just keep going. But did you learn something from it? And I think that approach with them has made it so that to this day, when we go shoot something, they know that it doesn't matter if they have an errant shot, or if it doesn't matter if things are bad. They're going to recognize that, this is something that Dad has some expertise in it. And sometimes I'm going to beat him, and he's going to celebrate probably more when I beat him than when when he beats me. And so I think that's a big part of it. I think a lot of cases with like husband and wives in that case is there's that power dynamic. And I see just as many husband-wife couples show up to classes where the wife outshoots the husband than the husband outshoots the wife. And it's probably worse
than not.
Yeah. And man, when she outshoots him, then he's got there's that power struggle there. I've been to classes where Steph outshot me. So, it's I'm like, hey, this is, that's awesome. Let's celebrate that.
Yeah.
And I think ego really plays into it. I feel like there's a certain percentage of people, and I don't know what the percentages are, but I feel like there's some percentage of people out there that can do that. But I think the overarching rule should be, if you go to a class or if you're trying to teach your spouse something, it's probably better to go hire an expert, because you don't need that stress in your life. And even like John and Laura, when Laura wanted to do some shooting stuff, John's like, I don't want to fight with my wife over this kind of stuff at all. And so will you do the teaching for her? And so we did a whole bunch of online stuff, and after a few weeks, Laura went and passed the FBI qual, and that was kind of fun. So I do count myself very lucky in that I've got a really close relationship with the girls, that we can do that kind of stuff. And and I'm open to them giving me feedback. So most of the time we get along pretty good, unless it's them holding a flashlight while we're changing oil or something. Then they can never do it right. Yeah.
Oh man, I can relate to that. Relate to that. Okay.
3 of my 4 girls are probably laying in the fetal position right now, remembering changing the oil with Dad at one point. But yeah, so I'm not proud.
They're really active in the comments. I haven't put them all up, but I don't know who all is which ones are your daughters for sure. But there's a lot of banter going on. So
that's good. That's my family. That's how we live. That's how we roll.
All right, one last question, then I'll let you go if you're okay with that. I know we're over the hour, but this is fun, Neil. I love this.
I'm having a good time. I'm here for however long you want to go.
Well, I don't want to wear out my welcome here. So this next question says, for a new instructor, what trainings and certifications would you recommend starting with?
Oh, man. Really... You've got to start with the NRA stuff so that you can get your insurance. That's the big thing. And the NRA instructor stuff is basically a breath test or a pulse test to make sure that you're there. There's nothing real difficult about it. But they're the nationally recognized one that gets you to the point where you can get some other certifications. There's the Sig Sauer Academy is great for instructors, and the Rangemaster stuff is great for instructors. And maybe even before those, Brian Hill's instructor stuff is some next level stuff. I think the challenge with Brian's is if you get into that a little too early, some of that stuff may go over your head, because he is such a great coach that if you don't understand some of the nuance, you might miss some. I don't know that that's the case, but that would be, for somebody that's very, very new to this, that might be a bit of a challenge. Now, when Brian came here and taught this, my daughter Rebecca took it, who is not an instructor, but she's a new mom and never gets to take classes. So Steph's like, hey, Brian, Becca's not an instructor, but can she take your class? And of course he says yes, because he's coming to our house to teach, right? But she loved it and got a ton out of it. So, I would do, Sig Sauer, Brian Hill, Range Master stuff. The Range Master stuff is great. It's a great place to start. It's a great community. There's a ton of people to be in there. He's got multiple levels, and Tom has been around and done a lot of stuff. And I respect the heck out of the guy. He's got kind of a basic 3-day instructor certification. Then there's an advanced one. And then there's the master one. And then he's got a shotgun one on top of that. And I've been to every one of his, and he's got a new one now I can't even remember the name of it, but it sells out before he announces it. I'll probably go take that when I can. A lot of that is, that's where I hang out with guys like Adam and Chuck Haggard and those guys, and get to rub elbows with my friends when I go to these things. And so that's where I would really start with that. Once you get a little bit of instructing under your belt, the certification program that we have, you've got to kind of qualify to get into that. And it's a whole lot less about shooting, but it would really be beneficial if you had some classes under your belt and had spent some time with, as an instructor, because then this stuff means a lot more, if that makes sense. So I hope that answers that question, but it's a great question. And I always love talking about training, because I've been all over the place and taken a ton of classes, and I love all of the classes that I take, but for the instructor level, I think those 3 are probably the 3 where I would tell people to start.
Yeah. And it's not, as you said, it's not all the same. So knowing where to begin and then how to gradually work your way up is important. And how would you know that if you're just starting out? So
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
okay, well, I don't see any more questions, so I guess I have to cut it short. Man, I just
hold on. Can we finish with my announcement?
Are you gonna sing,
my
Neil?
announcement?
Are you gonna sing?
Do you want me to sing?
Yes.
No, you don't. You don't want me to sing.
Oh yeah.
No.
Sorry, I didn't put that in my notes. I know what you're talking about. Okay, take the floor.
So there is this thing. So I've been working feverishly for the last, I don't know how long. So anybody that's been trying to get a hold of me that I've been blowing off, it's not that I hate you or don't love you or think your baby's ugly. It's that I've been really, really busy. So we are getting ready, and we announced this in the ASP podcast, the end of the year here, but we're actually getting ready to roll out the Active Self-Protection app. And this app is going to be available on iOS, Android, Apple TV, Hulu, Android TV, and Amazon Fire. And each one of those is it feels like a month's worth of work to get each one of these off the ground. And I've literally been sitting here for the last, all day today and a while trying to get all of this done. But we're really excited about that. There's a fair amount of people that are, that want to get away from the social media sites and that kind of thing, from, whether it be YouTube. I don't care for YouTube, or I don't care for Facebook, or vice versa. There's a fair amount of people that, want to, be able to support us in different ways. And the other side of it is it gives us an opportunity to have something out there that is our own, that stands on its own feet, because then we're not at the whims of a giant social media company that says, hey, that video. We had one not too long ago that was very interesting. It was on the Active Self-Protection Extra channel, so our smaller channel. It was a video of John teaching at a conference. So he's literally standing there. There's no gunplay. There's no violence. There's no blood. There's no nothing. And the YouTube bots flagged that as violent, gave us a strike, and took the video down. And we couldn't post a video for a week. And when you make your living by posting videos, that makes you stop and think real hard. So, so we've got some really cool stuff. There's going to be some premium content on there and stuff that I'm not really ready to talk about yet. But those of you that see me at SHOT Show, you'll see me in a booth playing with a thing that you're going to love. And I think it's going to make this thing pretty special. But, the premium content is going to be some of the classes that we go to, some of the things that happen when Natalie goes, when the range monkey goes to a class, that'll probably end up in the premium content, and along with some other people out there. So, you might get to see, some enter the dojo kind of stuff and that kind of thing. So it won't just be ASP. So it's going to be a pretty cool ASP. We're really, really excited about it. Just got to get all the technical stuff worked out. So that's coming, and I'm hoping that thing rolls out.
Neil, darn it. I wasn't thinking. Gosh.
No, it's totally cool. I'm really excited about it.
Everyone's staying on though. I can see the count and it hasn't dropped off. So I'm hoping everybody is hearing this because that's really exciting and it sounds like a ton of work.
It is. There's a lot more to it than I expected, and I'm not a technical guy, so I'm literally sitting out here just fighting my way through it. And my hair, I didn't even have to put any stuff in it.
I can see you trying to pull it out. Yeah.
I've been pulling my hair for the last several days, and I went out to Phoenix. We had a class on Sunday, and I extended my trip for a day, and I literally sat outside of John's house on his deck and spent about 15 hours working through some of it on Monday.
Oh my gosh.
And so, but we're making real progress. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think cool things are going to happen, and I'm really, really excited to be able to have this on
the. You're hopeful it'll launch in February, but no guarantees. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm not ready to guarantee anything just yet.
Yeah.
Today I thought I finished a major step of that, and then I went inside. I hugged my wife, and I'm like, I finally got this one done for Amazon Fire. And then 20 minutes later, I got a text message from the guy. He's like, hey, you have to redo all that. So so it's not as easy as you would think, and we're pretty but I'm still excited about it. I've got to fight my way through some of that kind of stuff. So
it'll be worth it.
It absolutely is going to be worth it, and we're going to have fun with it. So
that's awesome. Well, Neil, we should cut it short. Thank you so much for coming on. You've been so much fun, and I knew you would be. So I'm not going to play favorites, though. I'm not going to say whether I preferred having Steph on or you, but it's pretty even.
We all know. Of the whole ASP team, I have 4 grandkids, and so we all know who the favorite is.
All right. Well, I hope that someday you'll come back on, Neil. You've been a pleasure, and thanks for answering all my questions tonight. And thank you guys all for your banter and comments. I can't even keep up with it. There's so much of it now, so that's a fun time.
All right. Well, cool. Well, I'm really glad you had me. This has been a ton of fun. So if you ever need to fill a gap, I'm happy to come on and tell my stupid stories.
I will keep that in mind. Well, I need to tell all of you then about next week's guest. I'll say that really quickly before you guys all drop off of here. Next week's guest will be Michael Green. He's the owner of Green Ops, and he's based in Northern Virginia and South Central Texas. And Green Ops is a veteran-owned and operated business staffed with experienced trainers with varied backgrounds and expertise. And Mike believes that on average, both civilian CCW carriers and law enforcement professionals train and qualify in firearm skills at a lower rate than career criminals. Would you agree? And his goal is to bridge that gap. So we welcome Mike Green on next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm so glad all you wonderful people stuck with us tonight. I had a really, really good time. We'll plan on seeing you next week. Until then, take care.